What's up, what's up, what's up, everybody? You know the voice, you know who it is. I am your host, Justin Emery, and I now have an intro song. Thank you for tuning in and listening to episode 3 of Just in Time. My guest today is going to be Kyle Andrews. He's a Baltimore Sun sports reporter. Real quick, before he joins the program, the podcast is officially on all platforms. iTunes, Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, as well as all the other directories that just pull from these directories. So wherever you find your podcasts, that you can check it out there. And also follow me on all social media platforms at Justin Emery Show. New website should be up next week. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Kyle Andrews to the program. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, how's it going, man?
All things considered, I'm not doing too bad, but we have a lot to cover. So let's dive into the topics here. So first thing is, are the schools expected to cancel their spring sports for this season?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's looking like it's going that way. They haven't done it just yet, but it looks like it's coming down the hatch pretty soon. I mean, Maryland just went into a lockdown effective 8 p.m. tonight, so I think with that being said, nobody can really get outside to train. You can't really ramp athletes up within 2 weeks to get things done. And not only that, but by April 30th is when they say that they're pushing school back. I just don't think kids will be able to get back in time for spring sports. I just don't see it happening. Now, on the other hand, we did postpone winter sports, their championship. So if, let's say, basketball, you still have the Final Four for high school basketball at Maryland, for the 1 through 4A. It's still a possibility that they could get that done later this, I would say probably in May, but they would most likely do it without fans. So they could still get their championship done. I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility, but all their sports aren't looking so good right now. I would definitely say that they'll probably cancel spring sports season in Maryland.
Yeah, a lot of the sports leagues that still have been going on, the NBA, the NHL, they really want to crown a champion. So it would make sense that for the current season, any level athletic would want to crown a champion, especially if they've played it all the way to the Final Four. For the seniors especially, the ones you got to feel for. You have an article out today I actually read regarding a Winters Mill senior for lacrosse. Now, judging by the article, I'm assuming he's talented enough to play at the next level for lacrosse. But specifically for the athletes, the seniors who aren't good enough to play at the next level or who are hoping to use their senior season to play at the next level and potentially lose out on that, is there any situation where college athletics might be more lenient on bringing those type of seniors in to their facilities?
I would definitely say so. I mean, at this point, you have to take what you can get. And I feel like college sports, they're getting hit pretty hard too. It's a lot of seniors in those sports that might not be able to come back because they have job offers on the table after their senior seasons. And now since they can't play their senior seasons, they're losing that, fourth year that they would have had on that team. And I think at that point, you have to get those freshmen in, and if you do have any remaining seniors, because the NCAA is offering those guys another year, so a 5th or 6th year senior, now you have an expanded rosters, and I think that'll be best for the games going forward, especially for the spring sports. I mean, I think lacrosse, baseball, and softball sports like those, and track and field and other things, I mean, they'll be affected a lot by this. And I think it'll also put more of an emphasis on those sports because, I mean, I feel like some of those sports get the short end of the stick being the quote-unquote non-revenue sport. So I think there'll be a lot more lenient on them going forward.
I hope so. I really feel bad for them. I know that as someone who did not play athletics after high school, I really enjoyed my senior season, and to have that ripped away from me for something that's out of my control, I would be heartbroken, and I feel bad for them as well.
I'm definitely right there with you. I couldn't even imagine. I know in my when I played high school football, I didn't end up playing my senior year. But I feel like that was one of the biggest mistakes in my life, and that was a choice of my own. So I can only imagine what these kids are going through, not even being able to play because something that they can't even control. I mean, it's awful.
Now, staying on the senior athletes, are there any potential D1 prospects coming out this year that we should file away to maybe look as professional athletes in the next, say, 3 to 5 seasons?
So I did a story on, you'll probably like this one because he's actually a Penn State signee. But Curtis Jacobs, he's an outside linebacker / defensive end from McDonough High School, or McDonough School in Maryland, in Orange Mills. And, I mean, the kid's a freak athlete. He plays basketball, too. He's just one of those – he's extremely explosive. Like, initially, this kid started out as just a receiver. And then they moved him to defense. They were like, all right, well, we want you to play safety. So he started out as a safety. Then they moved him. I mean, last year I saw him play middle linebacker. I saw him play outside linebacker. I saw him play defensive end. At one time, and they're like, you know, NASCAR package or whatever you want to call it that McDonough has, they had him playing defensive tackle. So that just goes to show you how strong this kid is. I mean, he's an awesome athlete. I really like his game. And it's another kid, too, Marlo Wax, that went to Mount St. Joe, my alma mater. This kid, he's a running back. He was a middle linebacker as well. He's a Syracuse signing. This kid's really, really talented. He actually led the team in tackles. He had about 150 tackles. A lot of them fell off at that. So, I mean, he was just extremely explosive. One of the best players that I saw last year. And the crazy part is he got outshined by a couple other players on his team just because of some of the gaudy stats the offensive players put up. I mean, he was, even though he led the team and broke the school record for rushing yards, he still got outshined. I mean, it just goes to show you the talent. And that's just one league. We're not even talking about some of the other, you know, players in this area. It's outstanding. Like this school, high school football in Baltimore and the Baltimore area is just booming. And I think a lot of people overlook it just because they're like, well, what guys have come out of Baltimore? I mean, it's a good amount. Charles Tepper is one of them. Tavon Austin's another guy. You know, I think the more guys that come out of this area, especially with the way recruiting and getting all these camps and stuff started up in the advent of St. Francis. I don't know if you've heard of St. Francis football, but I mean, they're a powerhouse as well. You got a couple other kids too that actually played for St. Francis that I would like to mention too. I mean, Chris Braswell, defensive end he's going to Alabama. He was outstanding this year too. He had double-digit sacks. Then you had Jordan Tolles, who's headed to LSU. Jordan actually played safety in football, and then he was a guard in basketball, but he's headed to LSU to play basketball and football. So, I mean, he's really talented. Then you had Blake Corum, running back, that's headed to Michigan. These are all kids that were all on the same team. Luke Hill, cornerback, headed to Oregon. Another St. Francis kid. Dominic Bailey, defensive tackle. He's headed to Tennessee. Then Damon Clowney, cousin of Jadeveon Clowney, he went to St. Francis. He's headed to Ole Miss. He's a signee. And, I mean, Osmond Savage, Michigan, another outside linebacker. I mean, the list just goes on with these kids at St. Francis. St. Francis is an outstanding football program, one of the best in the country. If you really want to check out some of the best players in the area and in the best players in the country, I would definitely check out St. Francis. They're a recruiting hub for some of the colleges. They just come knock on the door. You find the guy. It's almost like IMG Academy, I would say, but the Baltimore version.
Yeah, no, the Baltimore area is extremely, extremely underrated as far as high school athletic talent goes. And in Vegas, we have Bishop Gorman, which is the same type of thing. Off the top of my head, the one player who comes to mind is Ronnie Stanley, tackle for the Ravens, is a Gorman alumni. So same, just like St. Francis, one of those powerhouse high school factories.
Yep, it's exactly like that. I would say the Catholic schools. It seems like the Catholic schools all around the country have kind of pushed that. You know, they're truly prepping these kids to play football in college. And it just seems like not just the Catholic schools, but the private schools in general are getting these kids in. But it's really interesting to see how much that kind of expands over time.
Definitely. So let's talk some Ravens. Last season, you were down with the team at the practice facility. Lamar Jackson is now Superman. Were you surprised? I'm on record as saying that I did not think following that playoff loss to the Chargers that Lamar Jackson was going to be anything special. I am gladly to admit that I was mistaken. But as someone who had seen them at practice, are you surprised?
Well, it's so many things I can go into that Lamar just vastly improved on. I always knew that he had a great work ethic, and I thought he was going to be good in the NFL. Now, for him to be as great as he was last season, I could have never expected that. Some people, you'll hear people that are like, "Oh, I watch college football. I knew Lamar was going to be great watching him at college." College and the pros are a totally different game. And I think, you can't, me personally, I just feel like I can't definitively say somebody's going to be great in the NFL just because they were great in college. So I was a little skeptical. He proved me completely wrong when it came to his, I guess, jumping, the ability to jump from being just a mediocre quarterback his rookie year to being a great quarterback his sophomore year. I mean, dude's a monster. I mean, who would have expected any of this? And I think the Ravens, the other thing that they did is that they surrounded him with talent that works with him perfectly. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, Broward County guy, somebody that Lamar can vibe with a little bit. They come from the same kind of background. And I think when you have something like that, when you have a guy that he's so familiar with, that's great. You put Hayden Hurst, who now got traded to the Falcons, and Mark Andrews around him. And I think that's great. You got two tight ends right there, and then Nick Boyle was already there. So that's three really good tight ends that they had. And I'm sure now with the trade of Hayden Hurst, they'll probably grab a receiver in the second round sometime. Then when you have, offensive line, you have Ronnie Stanley, one of the best tackles. He's one of the best left tackles in the game. And then on the other side, you have Zeus Jr., Orlando Brown. I mean, with those bookends at the tackle positions, they're set. Then you go to guard. I think that's when things get dicey because Yonder, he retired. People were kind of like, they were kind of teetering on that, whether he retired or not. Then Bradley Bozeman was really good last season at left guard, but then at center, it's a big question mark because Matt Skura got hurt. And then Patrick McCarry, he came in. He played solidly. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are some people are like, he played horribly. I can't really say that because I don't think, at the end of the season, yeah, he gave up a few sacks, but I also feel like when you're a rookie and you get put in a place where you haven't taken first team reps all season, I just think that's a tough spot to put him in. So, I think the Ravens are going to improve. I think the biggest three areas that they need to improve on offensively is, I would say, receiver. They need to get Lamar a second receiver. Willie Snead's good, I would say, as a slot guy. And then I would also say Miles Boykin is developing. But I just think that they need to improve at that position. Then guard, I think, they need to get somebody, maybe a veteran, to push Ben Powers, who was Marshall Yonder's backup last season. And then center, because Matt Skura is hurt right now. I think he was decent when he started, but he wasn't a world beater. So I think they need to improve on those positions. But if they do that, I think the Ravens become an even more well-rounded team next year, even though they were very good this season. So I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to improve as a passer. You just got to give him some time, I think. I mean, I already think his improvement as a passer was gigantic just based off of the fact that, the guy went from throwing maybe, I think it was he had 6 touchdown passes or something the season prior to going and leading the league in touchdown passes. Come on now. We got to give him his credit somehow. And I think a lot of people are still skeptical. But I think they'll be proven wrong pretty soon if he keeps this up. And I think it's kind of the same thing Russell Wilson had to go through early on in his career too.
Yeah, I think that Lamar Jackson's ceiling is extremely high as long as he can stay healthy. That's the one caveat, is that he has to stay healthy. However, has a coaching staff that is committed to tailoring the team around him, and that is only going to benefit him in the long run. So, speaking of, the long run, the next, say, 5 years or so, Steelers got an aging Big Ben, and with this season, it showed that their backup quarterbacks aren't the guys. Pick whichever one you want. They're not the guy. Baker, you don't know, up in the air, and the Bengals, self-explanatory. Is this Lamar's division for the next 5 seasons?
I would say so, unless the Steelers. I think the Steelers can compete, but I also feel like the Steelers are in that place that the Ravens were in, let's say, early on when Joe Flacco was the quarterback, from his rookie year to about his, I'd say about until the 5th season or so, maybe even a little bit further than that. But it was a couple points where Joe, he could beat everybody. And he played the Steelers. If people want to look at his stats, Joe played the Steelers pretty tough, but he just couldn't overcome that hump in the playoffs early on, due to many other things. But I think that's where the Steelers kind of sit at right now. I think Big Ben, he's at the end of his rope right now. I wouldn't be surprised. I think this would be a great pickup for the Steelers in the draft. I think the Steelers, if Jalen Hurts is there in the 2nd round, then I think the Steelers should pick him up. I think he's a very coachable guy. He has the same kind of work ethic that I think Lamar Jackson has. And, Lamar wasn't – everybody always talked about how Lamar wasn't the greatest of passers and all this other stuff, but Lamar went to go prove people completely wrong. Jalen Hurts was probably the most efficient passer, or one of the most efficient passers in college football last season with Oklahoma. And he just did everything that you needed him to do. If you needed somebody to get out to the outside, break off a run, he can do that. If the pocket collapses, he steps up in the pocket, makes a throw, the CeeDee Lamb. He did a lot of great things last season, and I think he improved even further than where he was at Alabama. Alabama, I think their offense, it's kind of, to me, Tua made the offense really good, but at the same time, that I think Mike Locksley had a lot to do with it. Their offense is not as fluid as a Lincoln Riley offense, and I think him playing with Lincoln Riley as his head coach, I think Lincoln Riley took his play to the next step. I think the work ethic was already there, but I think Jalen Hurts would be an awesome fit with the Steelers. I think the Steelers they probably might try and add at running back, even though they trust in James Conner and Benny Snell. I think receiving wise, they definitely need to get another guy opposite of Juju. I just think after you didn't really have anybody that stepped up after AD left or got traded. I just think at this point they need to try to figure something out for their future. Whether that's getting a quarterback, whether that's getting, weapons. Because I just don't think Big Ben's I don't think he's gonna last much longer. I mean, I could even see Jameis Winston getting signed by the Steelers as well. Because I just think that, Jameis plays a lot like Big Ben plays, except for the interceptions, of course. But other than that, I think it's pretty similar play. So I wouldn't be surprised by that either.
I hope not for Steelers fans. I am on record as saying that I think Jameis Winston is the worst quarterback in the NFL. So we're not going to discuss Jameis Winston on this program. You're Eric DeCosta. What are you doing at 28?
I know I already talked about Penn State before, but I think they got to go back to the wall with this one. I'm going with the Yetur Gross-Matos. For all the people that probably don't know, my girlfriend's a Penn State alum. We watched tons of Penn State games this off season or during the season. And I mean, that dude just blew everything up. Everything that you needed him to do, the hustle, the hard play, the athleticism, the work ethic. I love that out of Gross-Matos. And I think he's one of those guys that can change a game for you. If you put him across from Matt Judon, and you got Matt Judon there for one season at the least, if they don't sign him to an extension. I think they get an extension done sometime.
I would agree with that.
But if you have those two guys across from each other, you already added Calais Campbell. You just added Derek Wolfe, who I think that's a great pickup for them. And then, of course, Brandon Williams mans the middle. And it's just versatility all over the place. I think the pass rush is going to be vastly improved this season. So I think Gross-Matos, he's your guy. You could get a receiver in the second round this year. Don't worry about that, Ravens fans. I think if you think right now, I think a lot of people they're getting drunk on power, thinking that the Ravens can get CeeDee Lamb by trading up. I think we would have to trade. If the Ravens are thinking about this, they're going to be like, well, we would have to trade the house to get CeeDee Lamb. They're not going to do that. The Ravens are a very frugal organization, but they do everything in a well thought out way. And I just don't think that's the right move to make. I think they need to fill other holes too. Middle linebacker is another one. So I just don't think that they're gonna go ahead and do that. They're gonna go with the best available player at 28. And I think if Gross-Matos is there at 28, he's the best available player.
Yeah, especially because CeeDee Lamb is going to be drafted by the Eagles. So that's not even going to be on the table. So we're going to switch topics a little bit. Nothing in this world is more sacred to a Marylander than picking crabs. Now, when I first moved to Baltimore and I heard the phrase picking crabs, I literally thought it meant going like fishing for crabs, like in the bay. So explain for the novice out there what that means.
All right, so if you want to pick crabs in Maryland, that means you're opening up the shell of the crab, you're getting the meat out. You got mallets, you get like these little wooden mallets. You probably have some Old Bay around. If the Old Bay is not already on the steamed crabs, because in Baltimore we got steamed blue crabs, and usually they don't dump Old Bay on it. And that's another thing. Everybody always says, "Oh yeah, Maryland crabs have Old Bay on it." That's not true. They usually have J.O. on it, and J.O. is thicker seasoning. It tastes just like Old Bay, but it's thick, and it's crab seasoning. and that's the crab season, and that they put on steamed crabs in Maryland and other places as well. I know Virginia, they have crabs as well. They got steamed crabs, but they also use JL. But then you also, what you do is sometimes people have butter or, or not tartar sauce, cocktail sauce. I don't do that because, I mean, the crabs are good as is. I like that salty taste on the crabs, so I don't fool with all this stuff, but it's pretty good stuff. I mean, you get a knife too. You usually take a little butter knife. It's a bottom piece on the crab that you split open, and then you split the top part of the shell off. And then after that, that's when you split the crab in half with your hand. So it's some good stuff. But you also got to pick out we call it the dead man. I'm not entirely sure which part of what that's actually called, but it's on the bottom of the crab. You'll see it as soon as you split the crab open. So I think that's just something that people, if you're not familiar with it, when you come to Maryland, it's one of the biggest things that we do is we pick crabs. So
yeah, you're gonna want to kill me after I say this. Kind of overrated.
You know what? I honestly
I'm much more of a crab cake guy. Much more of a crab cake guy.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I don't like picking crabs because it takes too much time. I like crab cakes though. Yeah.
People sit there for like 2, 3, 4 hours at a time.
Yeah. Just to get a little piece of meat out. I'm like, you got to eat like 20 crabs to get a full course of meat. I'm just like, it's no point.
So where are you going to get crab cakes then?
I've been to Box Hill Pizzeria a couple of times. I really like their crab cakes. They do a great job up there. That's like in Harford County, up like closer to, it's like if you go from Baltimore and you go towards Philly, that's where the best crab cakes are in the area. I would say Box Hill Pizzeria. They're thick, they're fluffy. That's the way I like my crab cakes. I mean, sometimes they're crispy. Either way, whatever way you get it, it's just, I think people tend to think, okay, we're going to Baltimore, so we got to go to one of the places in a harbor to get crab cakes. Those crab cakes are so overrated in a harbor, and they are extremely expensive.
Yeah, I'm personally a Jimmy's Famous guy out in Dundalk. That's my personal favorite. So,
yeah, Jimmy's are good too.
They're good, and they're hilarious on Twitter.
They do crack me up on Twitter.
They're hilarious. So, I know you're a VGK fan. Hockey question real quick. If the season comes back, you like the chances they could hoist the cup with Robin Lehner, and they're getting healthy. They're getting healthy and they're deep. Healthy and deep.
That, you know what? I definitely think, me personally, I thought they were winning the cup as soon, maybe about 2 days before the season suspended. I'm like, if they let Vegas come back healthy right before, and we're talking about maybe in like July or so, that I wouldn't be surprised if the season resumed in July. But if we got summer hockey and Vegas is leading the Pacific right now, well, they're going to hoist the cup, I think. And I'm going to be there for the parade. And trust me, I'm on record as saying this right now. If Vegas wins, I'm there for the parade. It's as simple as that.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I can tell you this. If the parade is in July or August, you might not want to go unless you're okay with true. Like 120-degree temperatures.
Well, I've been to, you know what's funny? I actually went to, this is a long time ago now, but I went to Arizona when it was, how hot was it outside? It was about 120.
Yeah, Arizona's hot as hell, man.
It's so hot. I mean, I will say another thing too. I'd much rather take dry heat than the hellfire that we have to deal with in Maryland during the summer. Because if it gets 95 degrees, we're dead.
That's very true.
And that's just because of the humidity. The
That's
humidity
very
is
true.
horrible.
One last question before I let you go out the door. I've been asking everyone what their quarantine binge watching recommendation is. What should I add to my list? Please do not tell me Tiger King.
No, I'm not even going to watch Tiger King if I don't have to.
I do not plan on watching it. To be honest with you, the first time I saw it trending on social media, I thought it was making fun of someone that misquoted Lion King or something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was some kind of joke about Lion King. Somebody messed up the name. I didn't realize it was some kind of documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as they were like, "Oh, it's a documentary," I was like, "I like documentaries, but do I care?" Like, that's not the kind of documentary that I will like, you know.
Yeah, I'm not
watching it. It just totally turned me off. I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
So,
but I will say one thing: it is one show that I really
hit me with
like
your recommendation.
That I finished. So it's a show called "I'm Not Okay with This."
I'm not okay with this. I'm jotting this down.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, and so it's actually tied in a lot with this other show called "End of the Effing World." That's literally what the show is called. But that show is pretty good. So one set "End of the Effing World" is set in like England. And so it's these two kids. That's another good show that I would watch too if you want to watch in conjunction. I don't think the second season was as good as the first, but the first season was awesome. Now the other show, "I'm Not Okay with This," is set like in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, like south of Pittsburgh. It's like a small, like a old rusted town, old steel mill community. It's pretty interesting, but it has a lot of twists and turns on the show. You kind of expect certain things to happen. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody because I think if you tell anybody any parts of this show, you're going to ruin it. Because then people will be like, "Oh yeah, I definitely saw that coming after that first episode." But those are two shows that I will watch for sure. If you are interested in, weird kind of like teen comedies, I guess, but it's also, it's beyond like the teen stuff too. But,
I'm not okay with this. End of the effing world. Noted.
Yep.
I will be diving into those later today.
Those are really good shows. I like those. We finished those. Me and my girlfriend finished those up, last week. So those are the two shows that I would recommend. I mean, I guess everybody's been telling me watch All American. They're like, if you like sports shows, watch that. But then I saw this.
Thought about watching it yesterday. Thought about it.
Yeah, I might watch it, but I also saw this hilarious clip. This guy in one of the episodes was running like a China route. I don't know if he like a zigzag route or something.
Sure.
And he planted his foot, and it was like they put it in slow motion, but the dude was already running extremely slow. And then so Tony Jefferson, former Raven safety, he quote tweeted that video, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this looks like Nick Boyle running a route." And Nick Boyle responded to him.
That's funny.
So it was pretty hilarious, but it was a slow. I was like, I don't understand why all these sports shows, they get these like super non-athletic people to be the like to be in the show. Like Michael B. Jordan is when you had Friday Night Lights, when Michael B. Jordan was a quarterback, that's believable. Michael B. Jordan is like an athlete is believable.
Right.
But if you get some random kid that hasn't thrown the football, and then it was some other show where this kid was throwing a football and he looked like, I don't know, he had like the Phillip Rivers throwing motion, but he was clearly only throwing the ball like 2 feet. I was just like, this is pathetic.
It's like they walk
get
into
me out there. Give me a spot on the show. Let me be an offensive tackle or something on the show. I don't even need to talk. I'll just look and pose it.
It's like they walk through LA Fitness and just pick people out for roles. Oh yeah, you look good. Come on out here. That's funny.
So bad.
That's funny. Kyle Andrews, Baltimore Sun sports reporter. Let everybody know where they can follow you at.
All right, so you guys can follow. I have 2 Twitters. I know that's kind of weird, but you can follow me at Kyle J Andrews _ on my first Twitter, and my second Twitter is Kyle Andrews BSMG. So my Kyle J Andrews _ Twitter. That's the Twitter that I usually post about, like, I would say college sports and stuff. Like if I'm ever covering Towson football, I post things on there. If I'm doing other stuff, let's say I'm covering like high school, my usual beat, it's all on BSMG. That stands for Baltimore Sun Media Group. So if you want to read my high school stuff about recruiting on football, any of that stuff, go over to BSMG. If you want to see my takes about the Ravens and my hockey love and my love for Marc-Andre Fleury, go to Kyle J Andrews _ follow me on there. I still post my articles from the other side too. Just didn't want to get everything jumbled up, but it's really fun. I've been enjoying covering this stuff, and I hope that everybody else enjoys my articles too.
Most people usually don't give out their burner, so I appreciate
it. I don't know if that's my burner. That was actually my original account. That's the funny part about it. The Kyle J Andrews _ one was the one that I used for when I was working at 105.7 as a high school as a Ravens beat reporter. So that was, I didn't really change off of that one because I have 3,000 something followers on there. I'm not going to lose that Twitter.
No, I don't blame you at all. Thanks a lot for jumping on here, and look forward to talking again shortly.
Oh, yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.
That pretty much wraps everything up for this episode. As I mentioned, you can find the podcast on all platforms. Leave a rating and review, preferably 5 stars. Follow on social media at Justin Emery Show on all platforms. I will be releasing a new episode on Thursday with Vince Quinn from CBS Sports Radio. So make sure to tune in for episode 4 being released on Thursday, and I will catch you guys next time.